when people play around with AI or with ChatGPT or any of this stuff, the reason that the quality of work they get back isn't desirable often as much to do with the tool they're using as the instructions they're giving it. So unlike with a highly skilled copywriter, telling the GPT what you want, it's not going to figure it out. You've got to give it examples, but you've also got to do it in bite-sized chunks.
You're listening to the Keep Optimizing podcast to increase your traffic, improve your conversion rates, and grow your profits.
Hello and welcome. I'm Chloe Thomas, the host of this e-commerce marketing focused podcast. If you're not familiar with the Keep Optimizing format, well, every 5 episodes, we switch our focus to a different marketing method. It could be email, it could be SEO, it could be Facebook ads. And either we pick up the thread from the last time we covered it, or we start a brand new thread of episodes if it's a new topic. In each episode, new one released every single Wednesday, I interview a different expert to explore the latest advice on making it work for you. At the moment, we're not doing a marketing method. After all that, we're doing something completely different. We are spending 5 episodes exploring a brand new topic, which is AI that actually works in e-commerce. Yes, we are looking at what AI tools, what AI strategies are actually delivering results, trying to cut through all that hype to bring you the good stuff. Well, not trying to, we are cutting through all that hype to bring you the good stuff. Last time we looked at customer service chatbots, and this time we're looking at product copy. Yes, that big thing we all thought, well, many of us went, oh my God, if we could write the product copy, that would be amazing. And then we discovered it was really hard. Well, the scenarios have advanced. There are now some very cool tools out there that can deliver great product copy for you. And we have picked Thomas Ryan from Descriptomizer to be our guest for this one, because the way they're approaching it kind of leaps you forwards many leaps in the world of what can you actually make your product copy do. We're going to be talking about not just how you can get AI to create great product copy, but how you can then use AI to consistently optimize it to improve your product copy and improve your conversion rates, but then also how you can then take that data and use it in other areas of your business. This is kind of mind-blowing, I think, so prepare for that. Do make sure you listen right to the end of the episode, because at the end, Thomas will be sharing some quick fire insider tips to help you maximize the performance of all of this. And then I'll be sharing my take on it all, plus outlining a couple of other free ways we can help you improve your e-commerce marketing even more. So stay tuned to the end, please. Have you yet downloaded our ebook? To celebrate Keep Optimizing's sister show, eCommerce Master Plan, reaching episode 500, yeah, it's been around that long, we've created an epic e-commerce success-focused ebook. It's packed with 500 top tips about how to make your e-commerce store more profitable. And I've personally organised the whole thing into sections, so you can dip in and dip out and take inspiration as and when you need it. This ebook needs to be sat on your desktop. Download your free copy right now at keepopt.com/ebook. Get 2024's most valuable e-commerce ebook now, keepopt.com/ebook. In this episode, I'm chatting with e-commerce expert Thomas Ryan. Thomas is the co-founder at Descriptomizer, the #1 AI tool for product descriptions, a tool their own clients have found increases conversion by 12%. Thomas has been working in e-commerce software development since the early 2010s. Hello, Thomas.
Hey, Chloe, great to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you here. We could not do this little mini series without talking about product description. So I'm so pleased you're our kind of chosen one to enlighten us all. So thank you so much for being here. How did you end up in the world of e-commerce tech?
I got my first taste of e-commerce in Berlin around 2012, 2013, working at a startup called Amorly. And I basically went from there to working in some agencies in London, up to Manchester, working in some of the well-known e-commerce brands up there. And from that point on, I guess I started contracting. I set up my own little agency, and it's just been pretty much non-stop e-commerce for 12 years now.
Very cool. And that led you to diving into the world of AI. So why did you decide to create an AI product recommendation, descriptions tool even?
Well, I was always aware, especially when I worked with some of the larger e-commerce brands where, they might have 10,000 plus products. I was always quite aware, even if not directly involved myself, in how much of a challenge product descriptions were, both in terms of the cost of getting high quality ones done, the logistics in general of just doing them. And it was always appeared to be a little bit of a, I guess, black box in terms of understanding whether or not they were actually good or contributing to conversions or enhancing even the user experience.
So when you were looking for that, or were you actively looking for an idea to turn into a product, or was it kind of like it just came along and you had to create Descriptomizer?
When ChatGPT came out and everyone was talking about it, it struck me that probably much like everyone, it would be interesting if you could get that to write your product descriptions. And very quickly, it became clear, both from the little bit of testing I did and what I heard, other e-commerce leaders say and copywriters say, the quality wasn't actually that good. So then my mind sort of steered towards, okay, and this was, I guess, the engineer in me more so than the entrepreneur, but my mind steered more towards, okay, how could you actually make the quality better? And so I started playing around with something I call, but it's actually the wrong name for it. It's something I was calling language models. And what I was attempting to do with those was train custom GPTs to write in a certain way. And a sort of a term I put on that earlier on was uploading your copywriter to the cloud. And so what I was attempting to do, and I figured out a way to do it, I won't say flawlessly, but pretty well, was get a number of product descriptions from, let's say, a brand, whether it's Nike or someone else. And I don't want to say just dump them into the GPT and say, hey, I like this style of writing. Can you replicate it? Because that doesn't work. You're going to get the same kind of gobbledygook that you would even without doing it if you try that. But by focusing on the structure of the content itself, so is it 3-4 paragraphs? Is there a list of features? What is the actual structure of the content? I did figure out that there were ways to actually write quite nice content and content that was in line with existing content that was on certain websites. So once that became clear to me that there was a way to do it, then I started thinking about, a lot of people at that point were still playing around with ChatGPT, and I didn't think people would have a lot of faith in essentially another AI-based copywriter. So I started thinking about ways that you could introduce a conversion component to the content. So I knew that it was possible to tweak the style of writing. And then I thought, well, can we emphasize more the content, the existing content that we know converts well? And can we run analysis on it, on the content, in order to kind of abstract it? So figure out the key topics, themes, and subjects that convert well, which is a little bit more of a scalable data set to start producing more content from.
I love how you developed it and kind of like saw the opportunities and moved it forwards, and then went, actually, how is this going to be beneficial to people? It's going to be beneficial if we can actually improve something. Because I think there's that thing with a lot of the different AI tools, is sometimes they're theoretically saving you cost by reducing reliance on other services, but then other times they're bringing you benefits. And I think it's a point where not many of us have yet got to when it comes to product descriptions, is that actually this could be a giver to the business, not just a reducer of costs. So I love the fact you guys have been on that journey. But what I want to pivot us into is how we go about doing product description creation well with AI, which I'm sure we're going to end up referring to Descriptomizer a few times during this, Thomas. But you've been on the journey of trying to work out how you make this actually deliver. So what are the key components to getting a working scenario for product descriptions done by AI? Obviously, there's the training of the AI engine. What else are the key bits we should be building into this to get the most out of it?
So you need to, in my opinion at least, you need to start it from a position of how would you approach this with or without AI? Because even if you get a copywriter, a really skilled copywriter, if it's garbage in, it's going to be garbage out. You've got to give them a clear direction. You've got to have a sense of what is success, what does good look like. And I think often when people play around with AI or with ChatGPT or any of this stuff, the reason that the quality of work they get back isn't desirable is often as much to do with the tool they're using as the instructions they're giving it. So if expressing the sentiment of your brand is critical, well, I mean, a really great place to start with this is just think, how would I explain this to someone? Now, unlike with a highly skilled copywriter, telling the GPT what you want, it's not going to figure it out. You've got to give it examples, but you've also got to do it in bite-sized chunks. And one of the biggest turnarounds I saw when I was trying to produce quality content through a GPT in terms of the style or the tone of writing was when I actually started breaking it down at a sentence level. So for example, I don't want to bring it back to Descriptomizer, but just to explain the process, because we were working with someone who they didn't like the quality of what was being output. And they had a structure with their product descriptions where the first line talked about the product, the second line talked about who the product was for, the third line talked about what was a good accompaniment to the product, and then the next bit was kind of features and stuff like that. And even within that sort of rigid structure, there was still a style of writing. So we got a GPT basically highly trained at writing the first sentence very well. And all we were kind of giving it as training data was loads of examples of first sentences that were well written on the site. So for quality of writing, I would say that's good. If you're looking at conversions and sort of going back to your other point about how can product descriptions actually be a value add? One of the things we did, and again, although we do this with Descriptomizer, you can do this. You don't need Descriptomizer to do this. Figure out the key topics, themes, and subjects contained within a piece of content. So, for example, if it's a fashion brand, maybe the products talk a lot about comfort or warmth. In the winter, you might want a nice, warm, cozy hoodie. Or maybe they talk more about style or elegance or country of manufacture, whatever it is. If you can run your product descriptions through a GPT and get it to give you data back on what are those most recurring themes and topics and subjects, if you have a way then also of tracking which product descriptions are being read, and therefore if the conversions are high, those product descriptions are contributing to conversions, you then have sort of a base level of information that you can work with. All right, product descriptions that talk about, let's say, style and elegance with clothing, maybe they're converting really well for you. And then you can start leaning into that more. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. And I think what is probably striking a fair few of our listeners as they're hearing you talk about this is that actually you mentioned the garbage in, garbage out phrase, which is probably the most used in when anybody's talking about AI at the moment. But it's so true. But I think the thing which will be striking them is how much depth you need to go to make sure you're not feeding the algorithm with garbage, to make sure you're getting the right stuff. It's quite a granular process. And like you said earlier, giving it 2 or 3 product descriptions you like and going, I want more of this, is not enough. And we're not even talking about giving it the raw information that goes into the product description. We're just talking to it about how to write the product description at this point, aren't we?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, just to go back to that point. So, for example, that first line, getting that first line to how we wanted it, I think we gave it 100 plus examples before it started consistently doing what we wanted. So if you think about that, you've got 100 lines. The way we did it, in fact, was we replicated a bunch of commands. So we would give it, hey, I'm going to get this slightly wrong, but the approach will work if you try something like this. Hey, I want you to tell me about, remember I said that the first line talked about the product. So you'd say, hey, I want you to talk about this product. You'd have a little bit of the product information contained in the command. And then you'd give it an example of a first line. We'd put in 100 of those. And it was at that point that it started consistently doing what we wanted. So that's quite a lot of groundwork just to get it to do one sentence.
As you're talking about it, I'm thinking, yeah, this is one of those scenarios where the answer is not to log into ChatGPT. It's to get something that automates a lot of this for you, that enables you to log in to ChatGPT. So we've got to give it a lot of training so we get the tone of voice and the outputs right. How do we go about giving it the information on the product in order to get it out? Because it's not like you can take your manufacturer's PDF.
Yeah.
You probably need a bit more than that. So what's the best way of feeding that kind of base product information in?
The way we did it in that scenario, when it was still a bit more primitive, was we would literally write, hey, I want this type of sentence about this product. And then in brackets, I would literally have, much like you would have a CSV file, just a bunch of key value attributes. So color equals red, size equals this, country of origin equals this. And I was just feeding that into it. So a bit like a data dump you would get from a product database.
Wow. It just blows my mind how complicated it becomes feeding all this in. So I love your taking us through this. And then we talked earlier about how we take it to another level, in that this is not about just producing one set of copy. It's about actually improving the performance of the website.
Yeah.
Which is a whole other level of stuff. So how do we then take this, creating our product descriptions with AI, to another level so we can actually start to see, I think I read out in the intro about a 12% improvement is potentially possible with this?
Well, if you have a developer, I mean, obviously I'm going to say use Descriptomizer, but if you have a developer and you didn't want to use Descriptomizer, this is how I would instruct them in order so I could get the information to do this. The most important thing you have to remember with a product description, just because a product is converting well, it doesn't mean the product description is contributing to that. And albeit it's not a perfect solution, it's actually a pretty reliable solution. You need to first track, are people reading the product description? And then of those that are reading it, are they engaging with it? And by engaging, I mean, how long is it in the viewport? And are they tapping, clicking, highlighting on it? The combination of the three are, like I said, it's by no means a guarantee that it's being read, but it's indicative. If you've got the product description in the viewport for a long time, people tap and click on it, they're probably reading it. So you take that information and you kind of correlate it, I guess, against add to bag clicks or add to wish list, whatever your particular conversion journey is. And so from there, you can start to score your product descriptions based on, is it being read? And if it is being read, are there conversions associated with it? And then if you score all of your product descriptions that way, naturally there's going to be an average. And a really sort of simple way to approach this is, all right, what's my average of the product descriptions that fall below that average? What are the key differences in those versus the ones above that average? And the way we do this is using something I like to call emphasis analysis. And what that does is it extracts the key topics, themes, and subjects from the product description. So a bit like I mentioned earlier, where maybe it focuses on style and elegance, or maybe it focuses on warmth and coziness, whatever it is, you can then start to map that data against, all right, product descriptions that emphasize style and elegance highly, perhaps they sit above the average product description performance, and products that focus more on style and elegance sit below. And chances are that's going to change throughout the year. So obviously now we're approaching winter, or well, we're basically in winter. I think things like style and elegance might become a bit less important. Warmth and coziness will probably become more. And so having having that visibility also is quite useful in terms of if you're going to promote certain products, even if you want to highlight certain types of products on your homepage, for example, or in related product sections on a given product page. All of these kinds of insights, they're useful not just for the product descriptions, they actually have application all across your website. And I would argue you should be using it to inform the kinds of content you're putting out on, whether it's socials, editorials, or even perhaps keywords that you want to be ranking for.
I would 100% agree that you should be using this data far beyond your product descriptions as well. I mean, what I think is where we've hopefully taken people's heads with this is not just can we get AI to save us some cash on copywriting, or mean our copywriting actually happens if you're the founder trying to do it yourself. But it's taken it from, let's just get it done, to something which can be updated all the time, to something which actually is actively on its own looking to improve your performance for you, and just to some extent just running in the background without too much intervention.
Yeah, I mean, I would actually argue, if there's an enterprising copywriter out there, this kind of approach to content generation opens up a whole new opportunity to not be an expense to a business, but be someone who can provide demonstrable value. Because don't forget, although we generate the product descriptions, all those are the use cases I made. Well, if you're a brand who's uncertain about investing in putting out lots of organic content, at least if a project like that is tied to the type of feedback I'm talking about, at least you've got some kind of a robust grounding to base an assessment on as to whether this is going to have an ROI or not.
And I think it's every time I've interviewed anybody talking about content created by AI, it's always either been implicit or stated that this is definitely not the end of the copywriters, and that actually this creates more opportunity for skilled copywriters than not having it, And so to ask you the really obvious question, Thomas, is this the end of the copywriter? Are copywriters going to be replaced by the AI bots?
No, it's absolutely not. But I think this is going to be the beginning of a different kind of copywriter. So all the same kinds of copywriters that have existed, I think, will continue to. I don't think you'd ever use AI to write, especially, for example, especially with the likes of a service business where, you've got landing pages and they have to be hyper conversion optimized. That, at least as far into the future as I can see, that will be done by people. But like I said, I do think there's probably a lot of brands who have someone there producing blog content and articles for social or whatever it might be. I do think the brands who grab this bull by the horns and start using data, like the way I like to phrase it is, AI now allows you to do qualitative analysis in an approach that was only ever possible on quantitative data. Because you can, a bit like what I was talking about with the emphasis analysis, and there's probably other ways to do this that I haven't even thought about, but you can now suddenly do mass analysis on essentially unique and different data sets and come up with firm, reliable findings in a way that you could only ever do before on a spreadsheet full of numbers.
Which is kind of mad, but kind of awesome at the same time. So, Thomas, is there anything we haven't mentioned about the joys and the opportunity of using AI for some of our product descriptions that we should have mentioned that the audience really needs to know about?
Well, I think there's a few obvious, maybe not obvious, but there's a few extra use cases that there's definitely value in. I mean, even on a small point, from an SEO standpoint, if there's keywords, for example, you want to make sure that your content is containing, AI makes that incredibly easy. And if you want to quickly spin up different versions of the same kinds of pages whilst maintaining certain key bits of information, again, AI makes that, I think, very fast and efficient to do. But look, my main sort of stance with AI and its usage in this context, at least, is, the content generation bit is cool and it can be done well. And I think we've figured out a way to do it well. but the real value is actually in using it as an analysis tool.
Love that. Thank you, Thomas. Okay, it's been brilliant picking your brains about product descriptions. Listeners, remember to stay tuned right to the end so you don't miss out on Thomas's insider tips on AI and my suggestions for more free resources to help you improve things even further in your businesses. Have you yet downloaded our ebook? To celebrate Keep Optimizing's sister show, eCommerce Master Plan, reaching episode 500, yeah, it's been around that long, we've created an epic e-commerce success-focused ebook. It's packed with 500 top tips about how to make your e-commerce store more profitable. And I've personally organised the whole thing into sections so you can dip in and dip out and take inspiration as and when you need it. This ebook needs to be sat on your desktop. Download your free copy right now at keepopt.com/ebook. Get 2024's most valuable e-commerce ebook now, keepopt.com/ebook. Okay, Thomas, so far we've gone deep into product descriptions. Now you get to wow us with your insider knowledge about the whole of AI that actually works in e-commerce. So for the following questions, your answer can be anything to do with e-commerce, which of course includes all those things we've already been talking about. Thomas, are you ready for the insider tips?
Yes, I am.
Okay, let's start with newbie advice. If we've inspired someone to take their first step, what do they need to know to give themselves the best chance of success?
Start practicing giving instructions to the least technical people you know. So pick your parents, pick your grandparents. If they can understand what you're asking, then you've got a fighting chance of getting a custom GPT or chat GPT to know what you want it to do also.
I love that, because it builds on that point you made earlier about it doesn't really matter whether you're working with AI or not, you've got to get better at briefing. I think that's so good. Thank you. Now, once you've started, of course, you've got to keep optimizing. So what's your favorite way to improve performance?
The challenge with this bit and doing it consistently is typically what you're producing with AI is non-consistent data, for lack of a better term. For the most part, it's not numbers and formulas like that. So if whatever you're doing with AI, once you've figured out how to do it, the next thing you've got to figure out is how to reliably run analysis on it. So, whatever the use case is, a bit like what I mentioned with the way we measure the average performance. Well, we score all the product descriptions and then we figure out which ones fall below the average. And I mentioned the metrics that we kind of base that on. You're going to have to look into quantifiable metrics that can deem whatever you're doing as a successful version or not.
So if someone listening wants to learn more, is there one cheap or free resource you would recommend?
So I would recommend, obviously, ChatGPT can be free. If you can afford to pay the subscription, I recommend doing that because it makes your life a lot easier. And after that, you just need to test. There's no resource out there that is going to be so good that it's going to beat your own experimentation and trial and error. Now, if you can find a framework to follow, that's going to help. When I started doing this, there wasn't really any frameworks to follow. I had to kind of make my own. And so the only one I even know to recommend is one that we make available for free. You can get that on Descriptomizer.com/magic script. And it basically shows you how to do all of these things that I'm talking about earlier on, whether it's doing the analysis across all of the content, quantifying whether something's a success or not, creating language models that sound like your copywriter, as I said, putting your copywriter in the cloud. And if you just follow one of those frameworks, whether it's that one or of other ones, and you practice and you iterate over how you're giving the instructions, is going to be the key to getting it to work well.
Yeah, all about those instructions. I love that Descriptomizer.com/magic script, like the cheat sheet to getting us started. So thank you very much for that, Thomas. Finally, it's crystal ball time. What's coming up in the next 6 to 12 months that we should be getting ready for? Dare I ask?
Well, we're obviously quite close to Christmas. So I'm playing around with something we call seasonality. And that's a concept that we've come up with where we can automatically inject themes into the content, into the product descriptions, whether it be for Christmas, Valentine's, Mother's Day, all of that good stuff, and have those product descriptions on the lead up to these events be not just obviously optimized around the product itself, but optimized for the particular season that the customer or the website visitor is looking at it in.
I love, and that's kind of like, I love that you've ended with that, because I think it's almost the end goal or the end opportunity when we stop thinking about product descriptions as being these static once and done things and turn them into a constantly optimized and improved. And it's like, well, if you've built a system that can do that, why wouldn't you be testing, right, January the 1st, rejig everything for Valentine's. February the 15th, rejig everything for Mother's Day. It kind of just becomes really obvious. I love that idea. Thank you, Thomas. We are nearly at the end of the show, though. So for those who want to take the fast track and get in touch with you and have a look at Descriptomizer itself, how do they do that? How do they contact you? How do they get hold of Descriptomizer?
There are many ways. So they could go to descriptomizer.com, and probably the best thing to do on there is a get help or free audit option where you can just book a call. You can also sign up directly, but most people find it helpful to have some kind of a call first, just to understand their particular needs and exactly what it is they want. Or they can find me on LinkedIn, and I am Thomas Ryan. That's my handle. And they're probably the two best ways to get me.
Nice. So head to descriptomizer.com to book a chat, or go and find Thomas Ryan on LinkedIn and ask your questions of him there. Thomas, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and for sharing so much insight with us on how we can get AI to really deliver when it comes to our product description. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Well, that really got me thinking. So apologies if I sounded a little vacant occasionally in that, because I was off on all kinds of tangents about how Thomas's approach to product descriptions could be used for other things. Watch this space. So things I particularly liked from that is partly the fact that, which is why we're doing this series now and didn't do it 12 months ago, is that the blueprints, the checklist, the ideas have been tried and tested. People have done the hard work so as you can fast track to the results. So I think that was really interesting, hearing how they'd gone about working this through. Obviously, you've got the same old garbage in, garbage out. How can you feed the right information into the tool to enable it to create the content that you need? And which then leads you to, well, if we've done it, maybe we can automate this, that then turns your product descriptions into a conversion rate optimization tool that you've got working in the background that's constantly improving the website, maybe bringing in that seasonality that Thomas was talking about. And then you've got that opportunity, which we've talked about so many times this year, about taking the data and extrapolating it out across your silos into marketing, into merchandising, into buying, to then see where else you can put all this together to take that data that you're learning from a previously untapped resource for many businesses to drive growth and drive performance in other areas. Yeah, lots to think about there. Okay, you can get the links to all those things we discussed, the full transcript of the episode, important notes and more at keepoptimizing.com, or you can use our special direct episode short links. Just put keepopt.com/the number of this episode into the URL bar, and you'll be redirected straight to the right page on the website. When you get to the website, you can, of course, add yourself, please do, to our email list so you don't miss out on many of the other things we share to help you improve your business. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Keep Optimizing podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, then why not check out our last episode, the most recent one, the one just before this one, where I'm talking to Rosie Bailey from Nibble about how AI is delivering for Nibble's customers, which is an AI negotiation chatbot. So I think chatbots and product descriptions are the two most commonly talked about ways of using AI in e-commerce. Not necessarily the best or the most important, but they are getting a lot of talk. So it's been really cool to start this with two episodes that get straight to the heart of those two hot topics in AI and e-commerce. So scroll back up to that episode with Rosie. Or If you're now off on a whole tangent about product descriptions and copy and what that can do to your site, then why not head to keepopt.com/content, where you will find all our episodes about improving the content on your e-commerce site and content in other places too. And we've just finished a really cool series recently about content as well. So there's loads of fresh stuff there, including Wikipedia. Also, please do tell your fellow marketers about this show, because I want to help as many marketers as possible to improve the performance of their e-commerce marketing. Have a great week and make sure you listen to the next episode so I can help you to keep optimizing your marketing.
Access everything Keep Optimizing at keepoptimizing.com. That's with an S, not a Z.
It's time to download the 500 top tips to make your e-commerce business more profitable ebook. Go to keepopt.com/ebook now.